This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. I don't know how many times I've talked about racists and white supremacists and the fact that things are a little different now. Back in the 90s and prior to that, all this racist trash and white supremacist language that's being used so openly now, they had to be careful about what they said. They had to use dog whistles, the term is. And that's just no longer the case. Donald Trump came on the scene in 2015 and just let it all out. Gave people permission, Jesus Christ. Gave people permission to be as racist as they want to be. To march on cities with tiki torches declaring that Jews will not replace us. Attacking victims of police brutality as thugs and ne'er-do-wells and hoodlums and all these other coded language words that indicate that they are less than. They are in an other group. Demonizing social justice organizations like Black Lives Matter. Demonizing a movement like Black Lives Matter. People are out there just fighting for their lives peacefully out there while cops beat up on them, mistreat them, usurp their constitutional rights against abuse and search and seizure and unlawful arrest and death. And one of these figures is Greg Kelly, the credibly accused rapist, Greg Kelly, who finds himself as an anchor on Newsmax. And he said some insane things yesterday, again, in the vein of talking about the fact that there are no more dog whistles. He's just out there. He said some horribly racist things that I want to talk about today. And we'll start with this clip.
Hey, when we come back in a little bit, Bill Cosby. Say what you will about Bill Cosby, but he had a point about pulling up the pants. We'll be right back.
Now, that's a bit of a joke. Me playing that, saying that that's this horrible racist thing that he said. And I mean it's a joke because that pales in comparison to the things that he actually said. He said that, but the thing that I want to talk about is just far and away different from that kind of coded language about, well, they need to be respectful and pull up their pants, those black kids. That's garden variety Thanksgiving table racism that is demonstrated at millions of people's Thanksgiving, millions of white people's Thanksgiving tables all across the country. I grew up with this kind of pernicious, shitty idea. It was what he said in a previous segment, I believe it was previous, about the busing of kids from New York City to the African American History Museum here in DC, and the disdain with which Greg Kelly talks about that visit as though it's not important. What can we learn from Harriet Tubman? What could possibly be to gain from educating our children about American history? He yammers on. I'm just going to play the clip. We'll talk about it on the other side. Watch this.
The New York City Police Department is a great organization, and I think their heart is in the right place. They sent a bunch of kids on a cool field trip, although it wasn't as cool as it could have been. They all got on an NYPD bus, okay? Donald Trump calls it the paddy wagon. Anyway, NYPD bus, and they went down to Washington, D.C. Here's a police captain, I think, describing what's going on.
A lot of these kids haven't had the opportunity to get down there. Some of them can't afford it. Some of them don't even know that it exists. So for us to be able to do this, it's just, again, it's a great educational opportunity for them. It's a great way for us to partner up with the Board of Ed and give these kids an interactive experience.
All right. Cool. Very cool. But here is the problem. Where do they go in Washington, D.C.? What's the destination? The African American Museum of Culture and History. How much can we learn about Harriet Tubman? I mean, I'm sorry, but there are so many cool museums. And I think, well, I've been to this museum, and I really think at this moment, some of it is, well, creating More division. Yes, more division. A museum can do that if you focus too much on what separates us. I wish that bus would take a slight detour and go to the Air and Space Museum. I don't care what you look like. That is the coolest museum in the world. All right? You walk in, planes and spaceships everywhere. So much better than any museum there. Any museum. I love it. It's very kid appropriate. Hey, they even have a moon rock you can touch.
All of those statements are set against a backdrop of what the African American history and culture, whatever the full name of the museum, isn't. When he says it's kid appropriate to send them to the Air and Space Museum, what he means is the African American History Museum is not kid appropriate. That the history of Black Americans, unimportant. You can learn nothing from that. Emmett Till's casket is on display in that museum. You can learn an immense amount about American history from a visit to that museum. When I first visited, it was a very emotional visit. Down below, they chronicled the slave trade and the horrific and inhumane, the human rights abuses that were visited upon African Americans in this country, enslaved populations, thousands of which were owned by Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, James Madison, our founding fathers, the men that this jackass venerates, owned human beings. And before you say, well, that was just the culture of the day, everyone, it's not true. John Adams was ardently opposed to slavery. Samuel Adams, this is talked about in John Adams' biography, that Samuel Adams was given a little girl as a slave, as a gift in like 1758 or some year, obviously prior to the foundation of the United States, and he immediately set her free because it was repugnant and they knew that. Not everyone knew slavery is just, that's what you do. That is a lie. To label this a problem, here's the problem, credibly accused rapist Greg Kelly says. Here's the problem with sending American children to an American museum that deals with American history. There is no problem with that. What he means is send them to one of the other museums that really deals with white American history. Slavery, the enslavement of millions and millions of human beings, is American history, no matter how some virulent white supremacist would have you believe. There's no whitewashing what took place. But they would have you think that. They would have you believe that what we need to do is send kids to Monticello and learn about Thomas Jefferson. Send them to Mount Vernon and learn about the virtues of George Washington, who at one point in his life owned nearly 1,700 human beings. Almost 2,000 human beings. This does not create division, sending them to the African American History Museum. What causes division is language like this. Posturing of an argument. It is beyond me that these types of ideas are catching on. Anyway, I would absolutely love to know what you think about this. You can call, leave me a brief voicemail, 714-576-4054. You can email me, daily@dollemore.com. I would appreciate the communication. You can also get to me on social media. I am at Dollemore, just about everywhere. Follow me there. And if I do something for you, if I talk about things that are interesting to you, if I bring you value to your day or to your work week, Please consider supporting my work right here on YouTube. You can click the join button below, become a channel member for $1.99 a month, or you can go over to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. Both those are great ways to help support and produce what I do right here. Anyway, I love you guys. I'll see you next time. Until I do, pound sand, Greg Kelly. Everybody else, be genuine. Take care of one another.